All right, Drew here with Drew T. Jackson Coaching, Speaking, and Training podcast. And if you're looking at me, then you are on my YouTube channel. And I'm so happy to have someone here that I consider a friend, a man by the name of Art May. Now, Art, let me say this about him real quick. Art is an engineer by training, a leader by nature, and a business owner by choice. I came up with that all by myself, Art. You like that?
That's awesome. I love that.
But you are the kind of guy that when you start talking, people start listening, and it's something that you carry. It's really that experience that you embody, and you're not in a rush. You know what you have to say carries weight, and I noticed that from the first time that I met you a couple of years ago. And so, Art, would you just go ahead and say hi to the listeners and viewers?
Good morning. Good afternoon, actually, everybody. And I am so honored when Drew asked me to join you on his podcast. And Drew, thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege to know you, see your growth, not only as a pastor, but as an entrepreneur and building your own business. And so thank you for having me this afternoon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My pleasure. Well, I do want to read for everybody your bio so they can get a little idea, and then I'll ask you some questions about it.
Sure. Absolutely.
Art is the president of Harvest Business and Leadership Development. He's a professional business coaching and training company. He's an executive director and certified coach with the John Maxwell Team. And he's also trained in the area of neuroscience and human dynamics. And we're going to get to that in a minute. And he's certified through Market Force, which is a business execution training company. Now, as a building and design industry leader with over 30 years of experience in developing and leading multi-million-dollar companies and 20 plus years developing and leading ministries, Art is uniquely qualified to lead individuals, companies, and ministries from breakdowns to breakthroughs by developing a leadership foundation for sustainable personal and professional growth, helping his clients to achieve their vision, goals, and dreams for the future as a world-class organization. And I think that's awesome. And I hope the listeners that you understand, like, I'm bringing you the cream of the crop right here. These are fantastic people that are really doing it in the business community. And so, Art, I promised everybody I would ask you a question about the neuroscience and human dynamics. So please,
absolutely,
tell us about that. Give us an understanding. It piqued my interest. Go ahead, tell us about that.
Sure. From a neuroscience standpoint, it was something that, much like you, piqued my interest several years ago. As a senior partner of a development company, I was looking for somebody to come and speak at our annual meeting. And I was introduced to this gentleman by the name of Tony Cooper from Market Force. And he came and spoke. And the topic of human dynamics just resonated with our staff. And Tony then asked me, it was something that I loved, and I had been coaching, as I've been building companies throughout my career and as an architect and developer. But this area of human dynamics is very interesting. There's too many companies out there, and too many individuals as leaders of companies fail to develop their human dynamic skills. And what I mean by that is, as we look to hire new people into our companies, and as we try to grow our staff in our companies, we sort of focus on two key areas, and that's business skills that we learn from school, our training in college and in other areas. And then we also focus on our technical skills. Those might be skill sets that you've developed by going to conferences or classes specific to your current position that you might have. But we forget to talk about the human dynamic skills.
Okay.
And it's very interesting. We hire and we fire. Excuse me. We hire based on technical and business skills, but we fire on human dynamic skills. But nobody develops their human dynamic skills. And the whole idea behind human dynamic skills is, how do we relate to one another? How can we better communicate? How do we find ourselves? We're sort of wired naturally from a survival instincts. There's 3 layers of the brain. You have the neocortex, which is the reasoning part that separates the human from every other animal life on the planet. And then you have the limbic system, which is the emotional part of our brain.
Okay.
And that has a lot to do with other mammals that have the limbic system. But then there's this very small part of our brain called the amygdala that is about the size of a walnut. And every animal and every reptile, including humans, have this amygdala. And the only reason we have that, or the only use of that, is from a survival standpoint. And it's very interesting when in the animal kingdom, when their lives are threatened, it's a survival instinct, flight or flight. You've heard all about that. Well, when we're under pressure, when we're under stress, and it could be in our workplace or just in our normal lives, that we tend to resort to that amygdala. All our other brain functions, the neocortex shuts down, and we go straight into it. But what's interesting, where the animal kingdom that deals with this amygdala and the survival strategy is really life and death situation that we face. But in businesses, it's not life and death, but it's either actual, what we see in the animal kingdom, or it's really perceived. And that's what we see in our businesses. And it's all around our identity. And what's at risk is my identity. And so we react very similar to the animal kingdom when we're under pressure.
Wow.
And so that's part of it. And it's getting a grip on what triggers me. More importantly, what triggers other people that you're working with. How do you develop your teams? And what we do is we come in and work with teams and executives, helping them understand, and we identify key styles, that what we call styles, from a human dynamic standpoint. And we help them understand how others are reacting. And everybody's heard of the golden rule: treat others how you want to be treated. Well, if I did that, I'm going to be wrong 75% of the time. Not everybody wants to be treated like I want to be treated.
That's good.
What we teach is the platinum rule.
Yeah.
Treat others how they want to be treated.
That's great.
So we help organizations identify styles, be able to identify styles of others when meeting. And it has a huge impact on how reducing friction in our workplace or in our organizations, creating greater productivity and efficiencies, just by this concept of understanding our survival instinct.
Wow.
So it's a great way. It's a great we work with a lot of small companies, with small entrepreneurs, and then we, as Market Force, work with larger companies. We work with Alaska Airlines and CBRE,
wow,
Keller Williams, Starbucks, and so a lot of these large companies are seeing the benefits of developing their human dynamic skills to make a difference in their companies.
Well, and I mean, what small business owner, operator, large business owner doesn't want greater productivity, efficiency, like you were saying? And then I was reading something the other day that said, if you talking about turnover, and if you fire a $10 an hour employee, that costs you $12,000 in the firing and the retention process. Letting someone go, hiring someone new, and most people are getting paid more than $10 an hour. So you can multiply that number for any business out there. If you fire based on these human dynamics like you're talking about, this should be a no-brainer. Not to make a pun with the neuroscience stuff, but a no-brainer on if you should go ahead and investigate this stuff and find out more about how art can help you in that stuff. That's great, Art. Thank you for schooling us, giving us a science lesson and everything right here on this small business podcast. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's an amazing science, and as people develop their companies and want to grow their companies, and as you were saying, it costs so much when we lose a staff member. Mm-hmm. And thinking back on Jim Collins' books, Good to Great, he talks about having the bus and the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus. but more importantly, the right people in the right seats on the bus.
Yes.
That's sort of what we do in helping people understand their styles and dealing with this area of human dynamics. As you hire, as you bring on, we talk, a lot of leaders want to just jump out there and set the vision for their company and let's go.
Yeah.
And they forget about looking from a human dynamic standpoint and looking at who's on the bus. Do I have the right people? And you really need to start focusing on who do I have on my bus before I set the vision for the direction of the bus.
Wow.
So.
That's great. That's great. Well, okay. So obviously you've had a full career. Obviously you didn't get to where you're at today, where you have this breadth of experience and you can come into an organization, you can intuitively read some things. You have these skill sets that you've gained over the years. You have trainings that you can do, but you didn't start here where you're at. How did you share with us kind of that journey, that journey of being the art you are today as a business person?
Sure. It's been a different journey, and I think I've been fortunate enough to have experience in a lot of different areas. Initially, really feeling called into ministry and thinking ministry was going to be the area that I really wanted to set foot in. And at the time, I was a senior in high school, really feeling called into ministry. And at the time, I'm going, no, I really want to be a fireman. And I want to get into the fire department. And so I went that route, went through the academy and got on and unfortunately had a small birth defect in my back that didn't allow me to be able to pursue that career. And my dad was an architect. And during that time when I was working in the fire department, he goes, what are you doing? You're only working 12 days a month. And so I went back to school for architecture. Unfortunately, that panned out when everything sort of went south with the fire department. I was working with Disney at the time and for Disneyland, and they actually interviewed me for a junior designer position. That's how I started my career in design as a designer for the Disney organization, which was a great long time experience.
Right.
And then so I continued to grow in my field of architecture and then also doing ministry as well. I was a lay pastor at Saddleback Church in Southern California, overseeing small group ministries and new believer ministries and really feeling led there. But at the same time, I love the leadership component. And I've been utilizing a lot of John Maxwell stuff, even in the early days when he was writing books and still a pastor at Skyline Church in San Diego. And so I was always using that, always developing. I love developing people. That sort of has been a gift and has been that I think truly God's led me to how do I develop and be able to develop people's skill sets and just help them to be able to grow and find their passion, their why, why they've been put on this earth. And so 30-year career in architecture and development, building several different companies as a senior level management person, partner in firms. And again, just feeling, I love leading and I love growing people along the way. A lot of people said, this is your ministry, is your workplace and what you do with your staff and your teams. And it was awesome. It was great. And I spent 23 years in development, the last 23 years in development. And at certain points too, again, feeling God calling me, sort of banging on that door about ministry and being selfish in a lot of ways. I'll be totally honest and transparent. I was selfish. I had a great job, great paying job, had the great house and office and everything else. And it was about 3 years ago that a friend approached me and saw some of the things I was doing from a leadership development standpoint and said, why aren't you doing this full time? Sort of got me thinking a little bit and just really, prayed about it a lot and with my wife and decided to take the leap and check out some opportunities in coaching. And Went back to London and met with Sherlaws, a large international coaching company.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Had an opportunity to, initially to look at working them, and just didn't feel that was the right position for me. And the John Maxwell team kept on coming back, so I thought, okay, I'll go through their certification, see if that's really where I belong. And that's when we met in August.
Yep.
And I came away, 2 years ago now, from that conference, feeling like this is exactly where I need to be.
Yeah.
Utilizing my talent, experience, and gifts to impact people's lives in the business and ministry standpoint. And I was ready to jump in, and got back from JMT and at the International Maxwell Conference, and shared with my wife, going, okay, I've never been more assured that this is really the direction that I need to head. Unfortunately, 4 days later, I found myself in the hospital, and thinking I was having a kidney stone. Never had one of those. So only to find out that they found a mass on my kidney, and being told that I had cancer, and probably 0.5% chance of walking out of the hospital with my kidney and walking out of the hospital cancer-free. And
wow.
So 7 months and 6 surgeries later, truly by God's grace, I'm cancer-free. I'm still with my kidney, just in a different location. But after that, Lori and I came together and just said, it's time. And really feeling an opportunity in a leading, and doors started opening up. And so I decided to retire early from the company I had been with for 23 years, and decided to do this venture of coaching, speaking, and training.
Wow.
And, over the course of many years, I've done my JMT, as you mentioned, and also Market Force and their program, the whole neurochemistry, neuroscience. It's been something that just excites me, and see the practicality and the difference it's made in my companies that I've worked with, and be able to utilize it. And so having an opportunity to do that. So it's, I'm excited. We basically really started the company really January, but really got it kicked off, retired in August, and staying in somewhat of the lanes of architecture, engineering, development, but also bleeding over into other areas as well, finance, mortgage, and then the small business entrepreneur coaching and mentoring them through their business growth and development standpoint.
That's great. Since you mentioned it, I did want to ask you a question about that. So you had this life-altering, this mass on your kidney, and you've got this health. I don't just want to call it a scare, but emergency. I mean, this crisis. How did that? You said it was subsequent to that you and your wife came together and said, we need to go for this. How did that event play into your decision? Did it in any way? I'm curious.
No, it definitely did. As I sat there in the hospital, going, okay, why me? What caused this? And why am I going through this? I was ready to jump in, God, and I think it was a time to help me have greater reflection on my career, greater reflection on how God really would want to use me.
Yeah.
And a lot of times before we move forward, we got to look back. Reflection's a great, it's a necessary time, I think, in our own growth and personal growth, that we need to take time to reflect back. It allowed me to do that. And it allowed me to really, during this whole time, never, having to trust God completely through this process.
Yeah.
Only to walk out, like I said, with, still with my kidney and cancer free. The doctors were baffled. They're going, this doesn't happen. You had less than 0.5% chance of that ever happening, and we don't see it.
Wow.
But it allowed us to really look at that and really, what's important in our family, what's important for our family, what's important for me, And how can I be used in a greater way, and use my talents and skills rather than designing a bunch of new buildings and apartments and homes? How can I use that skill set and impact people's lives and bring value to them?
That's great. That is so good, because I think anybody out there that's a small business owner, operator, maybe you've gone through a challenging time or you're in a challenging time, and you hear what Art is saying, and take the lesson that Art took out of that is take time to reflect and determine what really matters. And I think if you're a small business owner, you do want to use your full potential. I think all of us should desire that, to use our full potential and use it to the best of our abilities and shatter any lids that, or perceived lids that we have on our own life. And thank you for sharing that, because taking advantage of the opportunities, that life hands us sometimes, and the challenges that come our way, and saying, how can I grow through this? How can I learn and take a life lesson out of this? That's fantastic. And that is so good. Thank you for sharing that, Art.
Not a problem. No
problem. Well, let me ask you this. What has been, would you say, has been your greatest challenge as a small business owner, an operator?
I think for me, and I think as I've been coaching other business leaders and small businesses, for me, it was all around the sales aspect. What are people going to think? Not feeling, questioning my skill set or questioning my capability to really do this. I've had some people really speak into my life that know me very well, that have seen me both professionally and personally, and having that to speak into me and go, you are designed to do this. And I think that business leaders, it can be a lonely journey, and you're sort of solo at the helm of your ship, and you really need to bring others around you, developing your business, developing the direction you want to go. It's bringing those people around you that can support you, that could aid you moving forward, that you can collaborate with. I've had my own architectural practice, design practice for a period of time early in my career, and I was sort of one person, and I missed the collaboration that I would have with other designers and other architects, just talking about things. And so, we formed a group of a bunch of solo entrepreneurs. But having that, for me, it's the ability to have that confidence and be able to go out and sell and know that I can bring value to people's lives and businesses. I think for most leaders, most business entrepreneurs and small businesses, recognizing that value that you bring. Don't doubt that. And surround yourself with great people to help you in that journey.
Those are two huge things: community and then sales. I actually was talking to a gentleman last week, and he said the same thing. He said sales is an area that gets overlooked, and I think it might be like the reluctance thing. It's just like, I don't want to be perceived as this salesy person or slimy person, when in reality, I was told recently that the root word for to sell is to serve. And for me, that revolutionized my whole thinking on it, which is, hey, how can I best serve this client? And if I can't serve them, being honest with them and saying, you know what, that's not really an area of expertise for me, but I can tell you about a friend of mine that they would do a wonderful job for you, and serving them. And if that's my heart and that's my intention, then I should have no problem sending the invoice and saying, look, I'm confident that I can serve you and serve you well and help you, achieve whatever it is that you're looking to achieve, and move the ball down to court. So that's great.
One of the biggest pieces of wisdom that I got was when
please share.
When you are selling, you're exactly right. I don't want to be perceived as that used car salesman, or always trying to pound the pavement and pound, the potential client.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what I can do for you. People don't want to hear so much what your skill sets are and that, what you can do for them. The key there is when you're meeting with people, give them an experience. Be able to, understand, listen to them. The key is all around that is being able to really be a key listener.
Yeah.
Seeing what are some of the cues of the language that they're using and be able to reiterate that back to them, but giving them an experience of what you do.
Yeah.
Not an education of what you do, but give them an experience of what you do, and you'll have greater success. People, like we were talking earlier about the 21 laws that you're doing.
Yeah.
With John's videos, people, that's an experience John gives, and people go, I need that. I want that. I want to have that in my, part of my life and my business, versus trying to sell them on who you are and in the education that you bring. I have clients that I give an experience and they're on board, and it's like early on, I'm going, well, let me tell you about myself and why I can do this for you. And they're not interested. They're all about the experience and going, I have total confidence from that standpoint. So
that is so cool. Don't give them education, give them an experience. That is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Someone needs to hear that besides me. I need to hear that. That was great, but there's someone listening to this. Well, tell me this, how has personal development and continued learning, I mean, you shared so many things with us, but how do you think that or how has personal development been a part of your journey as a business person, and how have you implemented that in your own life?
Personal development for any business executive, for any entrepreneur, as a leader, you need to be growing. If you're not growing, you're going to be stagnant. Mm-hmm. And for me, personal development is key to me being able to better serve, as you mentioned earlier.
Absolutely.
Better serve my clients.
Yeah.
And so, personal development is a part of my daily routine.
Yeah.
If it's diving into a book or material, if it's going through and creating some new curriculum that's going to stretch me a little bit from maybe teaching it or sharing it. It's surrounding myself, as I mentioned earlier, surrounding yourself with a bunch of people. John has a great expression. If you're the smartest one in the room, you shouldn't be in the room. You should surround yourself with people that are smarter, faster, bigger, and everything than you are, so that you can be learning.
Yeah.
And I try to do that. I have hired a personal coach. Even though I'm coaching, I have a personal coach that asks the tough questions and really helps me to have a time of reflection, keeps me accountable. We strategize, we work together on things, but that's been a huge component of keeping me growing, so that I could be a better version of myself today than I was yesterday.
That's great. Accountability, that is so key as well, what you mentioned there.
Absolutely.
Having someone, we all need that. We all need someone in our life. And so the small business owner, operator out there, accountability is key. I was just listening to a lady yesterday share how she said, if I could just have someone in my life that kept me accountable for what I already know I need to be doing. And I thought,
what a great comment.
Right. I said, awesome. I'm here. You know what I mean? I can do that. And so anyways, that's funny. Well, hey, Art, tell us something that you're working on right now. What are you excited about? What are you working on right now?
I'm excited. There's, I'm finding myself not only working with business leaders, but also working with something in ministry. Working with a couple of different pastors and one in particular that is launching a new church. And I'm sort of acting, he's brought me on as his coach, but I'm sort of acting as his executive pastor. He's awesome from the front end of setting the vision and sharing the message, but he's definitely not one to set up the structure and implement everything. So I've been working on that with him and looking forward to seeing that church launched with him and having a successful ministry. There's some new programs, this whole area of neurochemistry and neuroscience, looking at the material that we do teach to businesses, but sort of reshaping it, reformatting it for opportunities to have to work with church ministry and parachurch organizations. I've worked with different organizations, church organizations, utilizing it, and it's great material. And even in, from a ministry standpoint, that works really well. But just sort of reshaping that. There's a huge goal in my life, and it's right now a 3-year goal, and that's to write a book. And,
wow, cool.
So that's on my hit list starting this year, just to start pulling things together and looking at how I could be in a position in 3 years to be able to publish my first book.
Fantastic. Well, we will definitely have you on. We'll have to have you on before then, but we'll have to have you on and interview again when the book launches. And so I got to get a commitment from you today. So when the book launches, absolutely, I want to interview you. Am I on the list? Okay.
You're
deal.
On the list. You're first, Joe.
All right. I'll take it. Well, hey, how can people connect with you? Because I know after seeing this, they're going to want to find out more about all that you do. How can people connect with you and find out about your services?
Sure. There's a couple different ways. Our website, which is harvestbld.com. On that is some of our services, talks about coaching, one-on-one coaching, training, also talk about speaking. I do a lot of speaking engagements for annual meetings and conferences in a couple different areas of leadership, of neuroscience and neurochemistry. So they can go to our website, Facebook, look up, it's under my name, Art May, LinkedIn, same thing, be able to look up myself, and has all our information. So, or call me direct at 916-878-9819. I would love to have the opportunity to be able to talk further with some of your viewers and be able to have an opportunity to share more with them and be able to help them move forward in their journey as a business entrepreneur.
Absolutely. And we will, for all the listeners and the viewers, we will have all of those links in the show notes below. So you can find all those there and click on them and find Art right there. Hey, you got time for a couple of rapid fire would you rathers?
Yes. Okay.
All right. So I switched them up. So these are some would you rathers. So here we go.
Okay.
Would you rather always be 10 minutes late or always be 20 minutes early?
Absolutely 20 minutes early.
I'm right there with you. Yeah. All right. Would you rather lose all your money and valuables or all of your pictures, all the pictures you've ever taken?
Wow, that's a great question. You can't replace memories.
Right.
Money, you always could remake your money. So I think losing the money and keeping the memories.
There you go. Well, I was thinking, so I reread it again. It said, or lose all the pictures you've taken. I'm thinking, you know what? I haven't taken the best pictures. I'm usually on the other side of the camera with the, so I don't know, maybe I'd have to really do some research before I make a final decision.
I like that. Good, Drew.
Okay. Would you rather be able to see 10 minutes into your own future or 10 minutes into the future of anyone but yourself?
Probably 10 minutes into my own future. Like I said earlier, reflection's a great thing, but looking forward and where you're going, so you might be able to course correct, knowing what's ahead of you.
Right. That's great. Okay. This was a good one. Wow. Would you rather be famous when you're alive and forgotten when you die, or unknown when you're alive, but famous after you die?
Gosh, that is, wow. I don't know. That is a tough one. I think of being famous, while you're alive, having the opportunity to communicate and impact people as you move forward. But what a greater thing than having a legacy that you leave when, after you're gone, of impacting people too. So that's a tough one. I'm not sure.
I know, right? Okay. Here's one for fun. Would you rather your shirts be always 2 sizes too big or 1 size too small?
One size too small.
And then final one, would you rather live your entire life in a virtual reality where all your wishes are granted, or in the real world?
Absolutely the real world. And that I think you have a greater opportunity to grow in the real world than having false assumptions and false dreams in a virtual reality type of thing.
Well, there you go. And this is the real world. This is the real Art May that you just got to listen from, learn from, and listen to. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to Drew T. Jackson Coaching, Speaking, and Training Podcast, or viewing our YouTube channel. Catch up with us at drewtjackson.com. And once again, we have all the links for Art in the show notes, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Drew. Talk to you soon.